Hey guys, in today's video, I'm going to be explaining why I personally feel that this current Fairy Tail arc is not the best, in fact, the worst in my opinion. To start off, I do want to clarify that I am not a fan of the manga, so I do not know how the story ends. I am purely an anime fan, I have been for the past 6 years now, much like Nuxtaku. And speaking of Nuxtaku, I can understand his perspective on the Fairy Tail War arc currently, in that he sees that as something for pure entertainment. And yes, I can understand that, but I just don't feel that Fairy Tail is really doing that right now for me. So, to bring up my first point, this Fairy Tail War arc was something that was supposed to be entertaining, but it has become extremely repetitive and very formulaic. The pattern seems to be that one Fairy Tail member is fighting against a Spriggan 12 member, someone jumps in, and now Fairy Tail pushes back against Spriggan 12 member, but then Spriggan 12 pulls something out and is now beating Fairy Tail again, until Fairy Tail finds a weakness and exploits that to win. It's just boring. It's not fun to watch anymore. Bringing up the weaknesses, another point is that these deaths and these losses of Spriggan 12 is just ridiculous. It's not good. It's not entertaining to watch. I mean, the death of God Serena, for example. They had created a completely overpowered character that was clearly too strong to be beaten by any other Dragon Slayer, so how did they beat him? They didn't. He just happened to run across Acnologia and he was killed off in one hit for being a dragon. Great use of an overpowered character, and I have a feeling it only gets worse from here on out. My next point is that the pacing is just completely rushed, and it's coming off as if they are just trying to finish the story to kill it off. I can understand that Fairy Tail is a really long and drawn out series for one with little to no deeper meaning, but it is entertaining to see the power of friendship defeat the villain at the end of every story arc. So I guess in that sense you can argue that Fairy Tail has always been formulaic, but it has always added something to the mix to keep the story fresh and exciting. This time around they are just making every single episode the same, only with different characters and their individual abilities. After the second member was defeated, it grew very stale very quickly for me. My next point is that these weaknesses of the Spriggan 12 members are just completely and utterly ridiculous. It was exciting to see the Spriggan 12 and hear that they were the strongest villains Fairy Tail had ever faced, stronger than demons that were specifically designed to kill an immortal character. I mean, the hint of power we had gotten from Fairy Tail going to the Alvarez Empire was overwhelming, and then to see that Agiel's weakness was literally wind and Jacob's weakness was nudity, or showing too much skin rather. I mean, what kind of assassin would look away from his enemy when they are right in front of them? Wall was completely overpowering Loxus until he had accidentally removed his Bane particles and allowed Loxus to fight at full strength. Then Loxus pulled out some last minute Black Lightning and beat him in one hit. For these enemies to be so hyped up and then defeated by such a ridiculous weakness is hardly entertaining at all. It isn't as much of a power struggle if all Fairy Tail needs to do is just drag on the fight until they figure out what their weakness is and then exploit that to win the battle. My next point is that there has yet to be a serious loss from Fairy Tail. I mean, if you look at any great plot, Naruto, Fullmetal Alchemist, My Hero Academia, there was a sacrifice or a serious loss that pushed the main character to overcome their limits and grow stronger to defeat the enemy. Fairy Tail has yet to have that great sacrifice to knock them down and motivate them to work harder and surpass their limits. In order to have a great story, it's almost necessary to see the good guys suffer a great loss so that when they do win in the end, we can see that they had climbed to the top from rock bottom. It's almost inspiring to see this story repeated so many times. I mean, the most we have seen from Fairy Tail is a couple characters being taken out of commission from overexerting themselves from their fights. I guess you can count Sharia losing her magic, but that isn't as severe as she's still alive and does not act as too great of a motivation for Wendy to carry on. You can count the dragons in the previous arc to be a loss, but they were hardly even seen throughout the story. It was more of an ending to their arc and their story. I mean, we had finally found out who they were and why they were missing and how long they've been gone. Not to mention that Igneal's death was nearly in vain considering Natsu wasn't even able to use his power to his full potential due to Happy holding him back because he didn't want Natsu to die. Speaking of which, it has just been completely and utterly underwhelming. I mean, every time we get a taste of the new power anyone had gotten from the 1-year hiatus the guild had, it had almost been pulled away or hasn't lived up to its hype. For example, Natsu's ability to use Ignil's fire was amazing to watch and was an entertaining fight to see, but I don't feel that we got to see it to its full extent due to Happy pulling Natsu out of the battle. Another example is Gray. In the last arc he had attained his Father Demon Slayer magic, and we saw how completely overpowered his abilities were for him to use it, but Gray has not used his Demon Slayer magic nearly as much as I had expected, and when he does use it, it's a little underwhelming in my opinion. I can understand that Natsu and Gray don't want to use their magic to its full extent due to the drain of stamina, but I do feel that this should come with a bit of strategy as well, similar to how Midoriya uses his strategy in his battles because he understands that he is limited to what he can do and how much strength he can output into his attacks. On top of all of this, the members of FairyTail have been handicapped in a lot of their battles, so when they do eventually use their full strength, it comes out of nowhere and there is no build to the climax of the fight, so it comes off as unexpected and does not do much as far as entertainment goes. So to summarize my points, I just do not feel that this arc is as fun to watch as any of the previous arcs, and that really sucks for someone who has been a fan of this series for the past 6 years, because this is the last season and they were making it very apparent that they won't be doing much afterwards aside from an odd spin-off that might be under development. That's it for today's video, guys. I hope that you guys enjoyed. Please leave a like down below and share this with your friends if they try to argue that this is the best FairyTail arc, because it's not. It's just not.